Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring in our top left-hand side, Azrael, our red Terran, and his opponent in our bottom right is forsakeNXE, our blue Terran. I apologize for my voice. I have a cold, and it sucks because I just started summer vacation and I get a cold. What's up with that? It's not winter. It's summer vacation. You gotta get with the program. But no, I am sick. And so I apologize for being absent, but I feel good enough to cast now, and I think I'm going to, and it's going to be great. You know what else is great? Azrael and Forsaken at this game, they are in High Masters. Forsaken's like top 10. Azrael's right there with him because they're red versus blue, and they're on the ladder, so they've got to be about the same skill level. Terran versus Terran on the ladder at Belshir Vistage. Weird map. I don't like this map. I like this map to cast. I like this map to watch people play on Twitch and whatnot, but I do not like to play this map at all because the third is super exposed. If you take the traditional one in the top right hand side, you can elect to take this one down here, and I do whenever I'm trying to do that whole death ball mechanic where you get like a siege tank line, or you have that Protoss death ball, or you've got a lot of roaches and hydras where you can position this massive army right here and defend both, one to the north, one to the left. But if you've got a very hyper mobile force, if you're doing a bunch of zerglings and mutas, or you're doing the bio ball indicative to Terran, then yeah, you can get away with taking the third off to the top right hand side, and sometimes it's worthwhile to do that, as the only secondary pathway is the one just to the south. But it creates a bit of a headache, it creates a bit of a heartache whenever they elect to attack your infrastructure rather than go for the mineral line that you think they're going for. And it looks like Forsaken's going to have to make that decision in a relatively short amount of time, because he is electing to do a bit more of a macro style build than we can see coming out of Azrael. Azrael having elected to grab his gas, Forsaken not grabbing his gas just yet, and he's taking up quite a lot of money actually. He's going to be spending some of that on the orbital command once that SCV finishes, but probably going to be saving up for a command center in a relatively short amount of time for Forsaken. Azrael producing a Reaper first coming out of that first barracks, not electing to throw down a tech lab or anything like that. A very traditional, a very effective build coming out of Azrael is going to be able to get a lot of nice, handy scouting. Actually, this map is kind of weird for scouting because you only have a handful of places where you can actually jump up. I think only by the front door can you jump up, because this is actually a double ramp, and I don't think you can jump down here. Yeah, that's right. This is not actual land, which would be awesome if you could position siege tanks down there, or Colossus could walk up. That would be incredible. But you can't. So unfortunately, this Reaper, even though it's very mobile, even though it's capable of jumping up hills, it will only be able to jump up a hill right next to the ramp, and that makes it so the Reapers aren't as handy on scouting. Regardless, they're fast as balls, and they can be suicided into a main base to see exactly what's going on. And it really doesn't cost much, and you get a lot of very handy scouting. So Azrael's going to be relying on that for scouting, and Forsaken unfortunately sacrificed an SCV to see that his opponent has indeed constructed a barracks back at home. He's going to be constructing a factory as soon as that SCV goes up on the command center, goes up on the low ground. A second Reaper being thrown out. First Reaper pops in from Azrael, unfortunately is rebuffed immediately by those Marines, and this is what I'm talking about. You can't go anywhere besides the main base, and if you've got these Marines positioned on either side of that wall, there's really not a lot that Reaper can do. In fact, did Azrael see anything at all? He didn't see anything. Oh, that sucks. Azrael's flying completely blind right now. All he knows is that, yeah, his opponent has a barracks, he's produced a couple of Marines, and that's it. He doesn't know if there's a tech lab on something back there. One of the Reapers does go down, unfortunately rebuffed once again, and again not seeing anything, just an inch away from these barracks right here. And if Azrael saw that, he could breathe a sigh of relief. He could say that, oh, there's no tech lab on that. Oh, there's not a factory over there with a reactor on it. There's not a starport producing a bunch of banshees right now. So Azrael's going to be flying blind. He wishes he could get in there and see that orbital command, and maybe he's going to be working under that assumption. He has elected to keep his command center on the low ground. He knows that whatever pressure is going to be coming out is not going to be monstrously huge, because he only had to deal with a handful of Marines, and we're only at the 6-minute mark. However, Azrael has a couple of Hellions on the production tab right now, and these Hellions are going to help him with map control, going to help him run around, take those Zelnaga watchtowers, run around just to see exactly if that orbital command is indeed going to be positioned on the low ground. The Marines being very sneaking around behind the mineral line just to see if the Reaper is back there. Unfortunately, the Reaper. No, wow, it doesn't actually go down. Fast reactions there from Azrael, pushing him back. However, that Reaper was not close enough to that orbital command just to see that it is indeed going to go down on the low ground. And that command center and orbital are pretty much neck and neck right now. You can see the harvester counts neck and neck, 27 over 26. Really, the only major difference is the fact that stim has already been started for Forsaken, and Azrael doesn't have one going yet. Instead, he's elected to get out more than a handful of Hellions. Those 4 Hellions are going to be able to push in and do some devastating damage to these Marines. Got to hurry up on that bunker on the low ground, because once these extra 2 Hellions push in, that's traditionally the timing. You only need about 4 or 5 Hellions to one-shot SCV, especially whenever they're accompanied by a Reaper. And that's, yeah, this is exactly the type of build that we see that's so very, very effective, especially against Zerg, but also very effective against Marines with the Terran army. Those 4 Marines are going to meet a fiery doom in a very short amount of time. The SCV goes down that was constructing the bunker, and the bunker immediately gets salvaged. Oh no, the line of SCVs getting melted away. 7 workers killed, and Azrael has just done a hell of a lot of scouting, managing to get his Hellions up into the main base, see exactly what's going on, sees the tech lab, the engineering bay, pardon me, working on that +1, sees the infrastructure back at home. I'm not 100% sure if he saw the he did, the factory as well as the starport up on the south side of that. You can safely assume that they're going to switch places, take advantage of that reactor and a heavy bio ball coming out of Forsaken. So he knows, Azrael knows exactly what he's up against, and that's going to be great for him. He's going to know that he's got a nice economic advantage back at home. He killed 7 harvesters, and that's exactly the difference right now, 31 over 38. Remember, that orbital command was constructed on the low ground too, so that's basically an extra mule for him, which is quite a lot of extra minerals. Azrael is behind on tech, though. His stim pack has still got a whole minute to go before it's actually done, and combat shields have already been started by Forsaken. So his Marines, when they elect to move out, and remember, his starport has already started to construct medevacs. So once those medevacs decide to move out, and here they are, yeah. So he's going to have 2 medevacs. He's going to have quite a lot of powerful Marines accompanying those medevacs, and those Marines are going to have +1. They're going to have stim. Combat shield's probably going to be done by the time he actually pushes in, and he's going to be doing quite a lot of extra damage. Now, these missile turrets that were constructed by Azrael because he was so nervous about the unknown is really going to help him out in defending against that drop. Because of that, the Marines aren't going to be able to drop directly on top of the mineral line. They're not going to be able to do quite a lot of damage to the SCVs. That's going to give Azrael enough time to react, hopefully. But if Forsaken manages to catch Azrael off guard, if he manages to drop him in an area that makes it so that those SCVs really can't retreat, Forsaken needs to do a little bit of economic damage here. I really like this play, the single Marine to the top right hand side, just to see exactly if the third is being constructed, and throwing down a third of himself in the bottom left hand side. This is a great play from Forsaken because he needs to keep Azrael from attacking him again. Oh no, he's just going to be a second too late. Remember, Stim has just finished for Azrael, but he does not have combat shields just yet. Combat shields is only about halfway done. Here comes the drop, but it is immediately rebuffed by the missile turret, and top drawer reactions from Azrael, pulling back his SCVs. Forsaken dropping off the majority of his Marines behind, sending in only a handful of them forward to deal some damage to that missile turret. Azrael, realizing that time is short, electing to stim and push in with his force before combat shields is done, before +1 armor is done, immediately knocking down both of those bunkers, forcing Forsaken to pull back. His orbital command quickly tearing away back into the red. It looks like the SCVs are being pushed back in from Azrael, pushing forward, but Forsaken has masterfully positioned his Marines into a choke between the mineral lines, but unfortunately the SCVs eventually push forward, but no, all those SCVs have gone down. On the other side of things, Forsaken is pushing forward with his SCVs, pushing forward and managing to get a surround, eventually taking care of Azrael's entire standing force at the cost of pretty much everything that Forsaken had back at home. Oh no, Azrael lost every single one of those SCVs. 26 workers killed now in the favor of Forsaken, and Forsaken still has a huge strike force of his commando Marines. It looks like his medevacs are totally out of energy though, and as Azrael continues to produce units, I think these Marines are eventually going to meet a fiery death, especially with so many medevacs on the way back home successfully rebuffed. I think it's safe to say that Azrael has equalized this matchup. It's probably in his favor right now, because even though he lost that orbital command back at home, he does have a third being constructed or has been constructed rather, in the bottom left hand side. So we switch over to the economic tab. We can see 33 over 35. Short time ago, Azrael was the one in the lead, and we can see that his main is completely unsaturated, oversaturated back at the natural. It's going to be a short order for him to reposition his SCVs, but what a mental blow. Azrael was definitely in the lead for a very short time. This poor siege tank not going to be able to get out of there unless something gets destroyed. No, that's a huge mental blow to Azrael, man. He was a little bit ahead. He was feeling good. He had a nice force. He was positioning to strike back at home, and then all of a sudden Forsaken drops in this main base, crushes everything he's ever loved, murders his loved ones, and then goes away. Like, succeeding in taking out so many different add-ons, really putting back his tech. His starport's without a reactor, so he's not going to be able to make a bunch of medevacs. We've got 4 medevacs out on the field right now, so Forsaken is in a very comfortable position, especially with 3 siege tanks out on the field. He's repositioned his orbital command back at his natural to resaturate that. Is he going to construct another command center there? I'm not 100% sure. He doesn't have a lot of money. I think that might just be a missed rally point there. Azrael is feeling nervous. He's going to be pushing out right now. He's constructing an armory. I don't know if you noticed that armory was actually being constructed initially before, but Forsaken managed to take it out before it was actually finished. So Forsaken is positioning his Marines in kind of the common field, but Azrael manages to sneak it in. Those 3 siege tanks throwing down quite a lot of fire. The SCVs melting away, but no, the Marines not being healed fast enough by those medevacs. It looks like the majority of the Marines managed to clean up the majority of the siege tank lines. However, just a single siege tank is all that remains, and that's going to be enough to rebuff the handful of Marines and Hellions. That's all that remains of Azrael's main force. And now Forsaken has a nice force that's far field. Going to be pushing in. It's going to be met with heavy resistance, but there's no medevacs here healing this army for Azrael, and the handful of Marines succeed in pushing back the numerically superior Marines and Marauders from Azrael, and now these SCVs are totally left to defend themselves. The missile turret rebuffing a couple of those missile turrets, but Forsaken pulling back his medevacs, making it so that he doesn't lose one of them, and it looks like this orbital command is going to go down. Wow, what a blow once again to Azrael. He's pushing forward with everything he's got. A couple of SCVs thrown into this. I think that's going to be enough to repel him, and wow, he doesn't succeed in taking down that orbital command, which is unfortunate because that would have been just a nail in the coffin for Azrael. Azrael just holding on by the skin of his teeth, and he's managed to get out that armory. He's got a couple of medevacs far afield. Are any of them filled with Hellions? No, they're not. The Hellbat drop would absolutely be devastating right now. But as the siege tanks begin to make their way afield, Azrael losing more medevacs than he can afford. He really needs those medevacs back at home, because in order for him to take out that siege tank line that's really quickly approaching his base, Azrael's going to need to be able to drop on top of it, or at least push forward with a strike force. The siege tanks sieging up in the background, the Marines being melted away by the numerically superior force of the Marines, but the siege tanks are doing their business, really just melting away Azrael's main force. But I think that's going to be enough. I don't think Forsaken can continue to advance, at least for the time being. He's got 9 more Marines on the production tab. He just has to sit back, relax, and maybe take a third. I think this would be a good time for him to take a third. I think it might be too early for him to call this as a good game. I don't think he has a far enough lead for him to keep the aggression up and actually successfully push out. But man, that is a huge number of Marines. And yeah, so Forsaken is constructing a command center on the north side of his natural, but he's also keeping up that aggression. He has more than a handful of siege tanks still positioned very aggressively by the Xel'Naga watchtower. Azrael needs to clean that up before those Marines get there, but those Marines are just going to get there in the nick of time. It's going to be a nice meat shield. The siege tanks were not sieged up, though. They are hidden inside the brush there, making it so that those Marines could not directly engage them until the medevacs caught up, and unfortunately those medevacs were just a little bit out of range, trying to heal them up behind them, and because of that, the siege tanks survived for a significantly longer amount of time than they should have, allowing Forsaken to actually push forward with his Marines. That is absolutely crazy. And look at this. Harvester count, Azrael had caught up and surpassed Forsaken because he was being so balls to the wall crazy with his aggression, because he wasn't electing to take that third, because Azrael was just super oversaturated back at home, because a couple of these mineral patches were beginning to get mined out, and in fact the main for Forsaken was pretty much mined out too. That's awesome. That is awesome. Really good job to Azrael for pushing it with those Hellions, doing a lot of damage, kind of doubling down on the scouting with those Hellions. It would have been tempting just to push forward, get 1 or 2 shots, and then as soon as you pop up to the main base, pop right back down. But no, he wanted to get in there deep, see exactly what infrastructure he was dealing with, and because of that, he knew that he was going to be dealing with a timing attack, and he elected to move out with his force at the exact wrong time. And really, that was Forsaken just being good rather than Azrael being bad. I think Forsaken pulling back from the missile turret, not losing one of his full medevacs to that missile turret, made it so that that drop was a lot more effective. And then also positioning his Marines right behind the mineral line, making it so that the inevitable SCV rush was having to be done through a choke, really added to the longevity of those Marines, making that drop a hell of a lot more effective than I could have imagined. I mean, it was like 27 SCVs killed. That was absolutely crazy. I loved it. I loved it. This was really back and forth. I feel much better now. If you guys have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.